Hey guys, I'm here at SoCal Games and Comics to celebrate Free Comic Book Day, and just like every year, it draws in quite a crowd. I have no idea how an event like this advertises itself to people who otherwise don't care about comics, but hey, whatever. The important thing is that they're here. Otherwise, how could they discover such rare gems like Transformers vs. G.I. Joe? That's right, Transformers vs. G.I. Joe. And since this is actually the first part of an ongoing series, they made the effort to label this comic as number 0. This comic is supposed to advertise the rest of the Transformers vs. G.I. Joe comics, and it tells us exactly where it fits in with the rest of the story. You win, comic! This comic also wins by not being ashamed of where it came from, and it's illustrated beautifully by being drawn so that it looks like it could have actually been published in the 1980s. They even colored the negative space so that it looks like it was made on newsprint instead of the glossy magazine paper we see in comics today. That is how you turn negative space into art, the Max number 1. Some would argue that certain properties can age terribly if you acknowledge what particular time period they came from, but come on. Transformers and G.I. Joe are the 80s. It's like if someone remade Back to the Future. Regardless of what decade it's being remade in, or the fancy-schmancy filmmaking technology that we have today, it would have to take place in 1985. It just is that time period. Our comic opens in space! It's also worth pointing out that this particular depiction of space is chock full of Kirby crackle. Awesome. What's not awesome is how Starscream, pre-Earth mode of course, apparently can't land a hit on the significantly slower Bumblebee. I mean, sure, maybe him being the smallest Autobot makes him a harder target, but you're telling me that none of these laser bolts are hitting him? And why is he shooting at Bumblebee? A flying Autobot is an abomination, and an insult in the eyes of Megatron! Really? I hate to break it to you, Screamer, but...
Autobots, to the power plant!
For some reason, the dialogue balloons are drawn with sound waves scribbled inside of them, while caption boxes directly beneath them translate what they're saying into English. I don't remember seeing this in any of the Transformers comics from the 80s. What's the point? We see aliens speaking English for the benefit of the audience all the time. We don't need to be constantly reminded that they don't actually speak English. Occasionally, you'll see dialogue enclosed in brackets to indicate that the character is speaking in another language, but that's it. Why go through this extra trouble which does nothing but waste space? Anyway, Starscream exposits that Bumblebee's capture will lure Optimus Prime out of hiding. Bumblebee, who is actually piloting a small spaceship instead of being the small spaceship, says that his ARC is faster than Starscream. And according to this editor's box, ARC stands for Autobot Reconnaissance Carrier. Great, we go from an interesting and charming homage to 80s artwork to stupid and pointless writing tropes from the 90s. Because poor literacy is cool. Bumblebee crashes on Earth. Why is Cybertron always just a hop, skip, and a jump away from Earth? How often can these Transformers casually bump into it? And of course, he crashes in front of the incredibly secret desert headquarters of Cobra. Speaking of secrets, this mostly splash page of the principal cast of G.I. Joe opens with this bit of narration. Some missions are so secret, so sensitive, so serious, that as far as America's armed forces are concerned, they never occurred. The agents sent on these classified missions are codenamed G.I. Joe! Yeah, because when you think secretive, you think of a big group of people in wildly flamboyant outfits who constantly yell, "Go Joe!" They start gunning down random Cobras, and all that Duke can think about is trying to talk Scarlet into going out with him. Time and place, moron! While he and Scarlet are casually having their just friends conversation, then the other Joes are effortlessly picking off legions of Cobras, all while these little file folders tell you their names so you know which toys you should be buying.
Buy all our playsets and toys!
By the way, I have no idea what's up with this perspective. These statues on either side suggest that we're looking at the side of this Cobra mound, and Bumblebee running on top of it seems to back that up. But then, why are we looking at this extreme overhead view of the Joes fighting the Cobras? It looks like the floor is tilted at almost 90 degrees, and they're all just standing around on it like there's absolutely nothing weird about it. If it turns out that Cobra created their own artificial gravity generator, that would be awesome. Sure, weather dominators could cause some damage, but think of all the things you could do with a gravity dominator. We then get another splash page where the Joes are suddenly fighting a bunch of vines that came right out of nowhere. We've got G.I. Joe, we've got Transformers. Why not randomly toss Poison Ivy into the mix? And then the Joes are still having a perfectly calm and casual conversation about their love lives. Scarlet has a thing for Snake Eyes, but for the sake of fairness, she says, "The Joe who brings me Cobra Commander's shiny chrome helmet, I'll marry that Joe. Because if you're not going to have the only other female character be a love interest, why even include her at all, am I right?" Back to the task at hand. This botanical abomination is the doing of Dr. Venom, subtle, who I guess they capture so effortlessly that it isn't even worth showing us how they found him. They're just there suddenly. He explains that Cobra Commander is planning to drop this creeper formula onto a city full of civilians. They fan out to look for Cobra Commander, and Snake Eyes finds his way into the Cobra parking garage. Which makes sense. I mean, the Cobras had to get to work somehow.
This is unacceptable.
Actually, this is an elaborate trophy room where Cobra Commander keeps his collection of cars. Dude, just put them all in storage and bring them out after you've taken over the world. Is it really a good idea to have all these cars with you when you're constantly under attack? He somehow stumbles onto Starscream walking around, looking for Bumblebee, who is also here for reasons unknown, and without thinking, Snake Eyes throws a grenade at him. I can't decide what would be cooler. Starscream swatting the grenade back at Snake Eyes like we see here, or if the grenade just exploded and didn't damage Starscream in the slightest. Either way, Bumblebee saves Snake Eyes before he meets his explodey fate. Back with the Joes, they find Cobra Commander effortlessly picking off nameless green helmets.
Shouldn't we go help him?
Nah, he's just one of those green helmets. We got like 50 of them.
He escapes with the Baroness and drops a creeper bomb on the Joes, which I can only assume kills everyone but these 6 Joes. Gotta give Cobra some props here. I don't think I've seen them ever be this lethal in the cartoon. Bumblebee and Starscream make it out of the explosion too, and Snake Eyes flies up to take down Cobra Commander once and for all. Meanwhile, Scarlet's cockpit explodes, somehow. Then she fires a creeper grenade at Cobra Commander's jet while Bee and Screamer fight it out in the background. So far this hasn't really been Transformers versus G.I. Joe, more like Transformers kinda sorta doing things while G.I. Joe remains completely oblivious to them. And then, oh my god! I mean, I know this is supposed to resemble the 80s, which was the decade that gave birth to the Dark Age of comics, but wow! How many comics out there show the villain shooting our hero's face off? And Snake Eyes got Cobra Commander right in the chest, too. How are either of them walking away from this? Duke and Scarlet rescue Snake Eyes as the other Joes shoot down Cobra Commander's jet, which promptly explodes in a gaggle of tentacle-like vines. Starscream and the Joes manage to escape, but it looks as though Cobra and Bumblebee are doomed. Back in the pit, G.I. Joe headquarters, Snake Eyes has been treated for his injuries and is all wrapped up like he's about to turn into Two-Face. It would also appear that even though they found his helmet in the wreckage, Cobra Commander himself was never found. So, Snake Eyes, you ready to pick a date? Da-da-da-da-da-da? So, Snake Eyes, you ready to pick a date?
I'm kinda hanging on to life by a thread right now. Can you give me some time?
Epilogue. An unimaginable distance away. A dark galaxy, far from the warmth and glare of a living sun. Because it's not like galaxies are made up of billions of suns. We see that Starscream has returned to an undisclosed Decepticon establishment of some kind, along with the severed head of Bumblebee. Megatron commends Starscream for his accomplishment, and says that he'll reward him with anything he wants. One might think that now would be the perfect opportunity for Starscream to ask to be Megatron's second-in-command, but all he says is,
Megatron is a kind and generous god.
So that was Transformers vs. G.I. Joe, except that it wasn't. The Transformers have almost no interaction with the Joes whatsoever. What kind of versus story is this? For all my gushing over this comic's delightfully 80s artwork, it doesn't really deliver on the premise of G.I. Joe fighting the Transformers. It only shows Snake Eyes running around in Bumblebee for a while, and he doesn't even give us the standard, "Holy crap, I'm riding in a giant space robot" moment that's typical of every Transformers story. It just seems kind of pointless, really. Since we looked at 2 comics last week, it only makes sense that we review another comic to go with this one. Transformers, Robots in Disguise. Not to be confused with that Car Robots TV show from 2001. This is a sequel to Transformers Prime, and I gotta be perfectly honest here, I haven't seen any of this show. The simplistic toy designs, the more obvious anime influences, the cell shading that made it look like that stupid Unicron trilogy. Everything about this show just looks so unappealing to me, especially as a follow-up to Transformers Prime, which was the greatest Transformers cartoon since Beast Wars. Maybe my opinions will change when I actually see the show, but as of now, I have no idea what the show is about. I have nothing but this comic to go off of, so let's see what it's got. Our comic opens on Prison Ship Crash, as opposed to the Good Ship Lollipop. After the most concise Transformers backstory I've ever seen, no, seriously, 3 panels with no dialogue and almost no narration is all we get, we open on an amusement park which has mysteriously caught fire. We find this character Strongarm along with our favorite Dinobot Grimlock investigating the cause of the fire, which they think may be linked to the appearance of a new Decepticon stasis pod, the occupant of which is missing. If the missing Khan is here, we'll find him, and we'll see if this fire is connected. If the fire isn't connected, I hope you don't mind spending all day calling tech support. Strongarm reports the situation to Bumblebee, the leader of the Autobots at this point, and he asks this little alpha Johnny 5 hybrid who the Decepticon might be. After running through the records of the crashed ship from before, he deduces that it must be Flame Feather. Flame Feather? I know that this is the Transformers universe, and there are some silly names to be found, like Laserbeak, for example, but Flame Feather? Really? Bumblebee has to get Sideswipe, the new Autobot who's supposed to be hip with the kids, but this guy named Denny...
Oh, hi, Denny.
Tells him that Sideswipe is with his son, Russell. And no, the comic never explains who these humans are. Why aren't we seeing Jack, Miko, or Raphael all grown up in this series? Bumblebee chews out Sideswipe for goofing off when he should be more focused on defending Earth from Decepticons. Look, this symbol means we're Autobots. Oh really, that symbol means that you're Autobots. I thought that you might have been the GoBots or something. By sheer force of convenience, Denny has apparently spent time in that neck of the woods before, which makes him qualified to deal with wildfires, of course, so he and Bumblebee set off to deal with it. Let's rev and rule! I'm, still working on the slogan. Why not just go with something simple like, Autobots, time to rock on! Sideswipe and Russell follow them in secret to take advantage of the amusement park. Why did Bumblebee take a human instead of one of his fellow Autobots to deal with the situation? Meanwhile, Strongarm is following Grimlock, who in turn is following his keen sense of smell to track down the new Decepticon. Tracking Decepticons is hard work. It takes a keen mind and a keen sense of awareness, Strongarm. You gotta know what's what. Me, Grimlock, tired of broken speech. Me, Grimlock, go to finishing school to learn better grammar. The Autobots are slowly moving in on Flamefeather's location, and in case you're wondering, no, it's never explained what he's doing here. I have no idea how the stasis pods in this continuity work, but if they work like those that we've seen in Beast Wars, I'd have assumed that he would be seeking out his fellow Decepticons once he's been activated.
Autobots. Always Autobots. Well, if you can't avoid them, burn them!
If you want to burn him, why not just make fun of his stupid haircut? A single boot to the head is enough to send Flamefeather flying, then Bumblebee, Strongarm, and Denny meet up with Sideswipe and Russell. I never thought I'd say this, but let's scour this playground for a fire-breathing bird. Dude, you come from a mythology where giant robot monsters can transform into planets. This is hardly the weirdest thing you're ever going to say. They spread out through the park for Flamefeather, utilizing the famous Family Circus dotted line technique. And just look at all these creative names that they gave to the different areas of Funorama. Westorama, Dino-orama, Space-orama, Bear-orama, Unimaginative-orama. Sideswipe deduces that Flamefeather is just looking for a way to get off this planet, and they find him at this new space ride that he mistakes for a real spaceship. Of course, it isn't long before another fight breaks out. Somebody do something! That's an order! And that is why Optimus chose Bumblebee to be his successor. They eventually bring Flamefeather down just in time for the park to open the next morning. But how are the Transformers going to get out of here without being seen by all these bystanders? Denny has a very clever idea for how to get past park security. So, those scorch marks sure weren't part of the plan, but that Space Battle 7, bird was malfunctioning something fierce. This new dino unit should do the trick, though. It won't go anywhere, that's for sure. Of course, I immediately believe that you, a random stranger I've never seen before, was working on this mechanical bird, which has nothing to do with this ride, and of course I believe that it takes 3 cars for you to do so. So yeah, they take away this bird animatronic to be repaired, and instead they leave this giant robotic T-Rex statue in its place. Predictably, it raises no questions whatsoever from the guests or even the park staff. That makes sense. Is Grimlock supposed to just stay there for the rest of his life? So our comic ends with the rest of the Autobot cast from Transformers Prime, giving me severe whiplash because I had completely forgotten that this thing was supposed to be a sequel to Prime. Ultra Magnus gives some vague hinting about some mysterious plan that he has for Bumblebee, from which Bulkhead tries to dissuade him since Bumblebee is still their friend. Sorry, Bulkhead. What we're doing is too important to let friendship get in the way. What comes next will prove what it really means to be an Autobot. Oh, great. That's just wonderful. The characters that I actually recognize from the first show are now set up to look like this comic's villains. Hooray. Yeah, this comic sucks. The villain does nothing villainous outside of some accidental collateral damage. The heroes don't do anything heroic. They don't even try to put out the fire that kicked off this whole story. The human characters are stereotypically useless when Transformers Prime did a great job of making sure that their human characters brought more to the table, and the characters I'm familiar with are either stupid or made out to look like they're the bad guys. But the absolute worst part of this comic is that I don't know if the comic itself is bad on its own merits, or if this would actually make more sense if I'd seen the show. Again, I completely recognize that I cannot let myself get too angry with this story, because I don't know the story. I've never seen the show. I don't know what I'm looking at here. But I think it's time for me now to relax and blow off a little steam.
Subscribe, like, follow, comment, share, watch more.